2 years after the release of Tanchjim Tanya, now we have the latest iteration of the same Tanya with DSP module. So let's just find out what's the deal with this Tanchjim Tanya DSP. Alright, so let's just have a look at the price itself first. Okay, if you remember correctly, over 2 years ago, Tanchjim Tanya was released at around 29.99 US dollars. So, and it is in fact quite popular. And now, based on the same exact configuration and same material, okay, it is now included with this thing here. Permanently attached USB DAC. In fact, yes, it is a dongle. And it is priced, you're just going to pay a bit like $2 extra at total price of $23 US. 23.99 precisely. Okay, now let's just have a look at the build itself. Okay, first and foremost, this is a budget IEM. So the package itself is pretty much very simple. And in fact, knowing Tanchjim, I really love the approach of being, let's say, minimalist. Okay, simple box, no nonsense. And what's inside, you're just gonna get the IEM itself, obviously, and then 2 sets of tips, this bag, and of course this is interesting as well. You see here, these are extra filters that you can use on the IEM. So which means that for whatever reason, if your filter gets clogged or anything like that, you can easily replace it. Okay, so looking at the build itself, first and foremost, again, like I mentioned earlier, this is the exact same driver as the previous Tanchjim Tanya. In fact, it is the same thing. The driver inside is in fact a 7mm single dynamic driver. And despite being categorized as budget IEM, I must say that the build quality is excellent. You see here, the shell is in fact what they call it as aviation grade aluminum alloy shell. Okay, and it is quite solid. It is a bullet type, very easy to wear, and as you can see here, the nozzle itself is quite big actually. I think it's more than 4mm, and it goes in just like that. And I must say that comfort level, it is quite good as well. Okay, so most importantly, this DSP model, as I mentioned earlier, right, it comes with this thing here, which is USB Type-C, permanent connection. And in fact, right, this is what you're looking at is in fact a DAC inside with preset of DSP embedded into it. So it is essentially an IEM and a dongle that you are paying for. Okay, so the rating itself is pretty much very low at 16 ohm, same like with the old Tanchjim Tanya. And the sensitivity itself is again the same, exact same at 112 dB. Okay, the cable, despite being, let's say, as simple as it is, I really love it actually because the build quality seems pretty solid, robust, and I believe this should be able to withstand daily abuse. Okay, and here, microphone. I have tested this microphone as well. It works perfectly. In fact, even for when attached to my PC or my phone, I was able to use WhatsApp call, and then in fact, even using it on Discord for gaming purposes. Definitely very usable there. Okay, now let's talk about the features and the best way to use this Tanchjim Tanya DSP. First and foremost, as I mentioned earlier, this is a permanently attached DAC here. So definitely it is playable and usable if you have a USB Type-C phone. So sorry iPhone, no DSP for iPhone. And definitely you can also attach it to PC here. I have already done that as well. It works both ways. So, but the most important part is that you see this dongle here? I have tested it with Hibi Music app, and in fact also UAPP. The good news is that it seems to be detected as a full-blown DAC dongle. So I was in fact able to use USB exclusive mode and allow Hibi Music app to fully control the USB function. So in fact, ensuring that I am getting the most power and the most quality out of it. As for the sound itself, this Tanchjim Tanya DSP, like the predecessor, is definitely something that I would consider as being Harman tune. In fact, a very bassy Harman tune. So let me just put it this way. If you are a bass head, definitely you will love this, because this Tanchjim Tanya DSP offers some of the strongest bass responses that I have listened to in IEM release this year, and in fact even previous year, because the first thing that was prominent to my ears the moment I attach it, and listen to it, was like, wow, this is like, really commanding. The mid bass, the sub bass, all right, both of them appearing very bold and very engaging, thumpy, and pounding, just like that, especially if the music that you're playing is something like rock, metal, or even especially electronic music. And as for the overall tuning itself, I would say that the good thing about this Tanchjim Tanya DSP is that the timbre and tonal balance, I would definitely regard it as being organic. So that is definitely a huge plus, from my perspective. I do not feel that it is sounding digital or anything like that, despite being purely DSP based. Because if you have watched my previous review before, you know, any type of DSP module IEM have a tendency to sound a bit, let's say, artificial, because of that enhancement on the software level. A manner of saying is that sometimes the EQ, which is embedded inside here permanently, seems to be a bit more, pushing it over the top. But at least for this Tanchjim Tanya DSP, I would say that the way it presents the dynamics, the way it tunes the sound itself, it is optimized, definitely. And in fact, I would say that the resolution itself is quite good for a budget IEM. And in fact, the speed itself is fairly okay, meaning that I am not feeling it as slow or sluggish, anything like that. But definitely, I would say DSP falls into the category of being warm sounding, especially if you are into, let's say, Sennheiser type of, organic sound. But again, it is still definitely more toward Harman-ish type of tuning, which means that it's kind of a bit of U curve with a bit more pronounced on sub bass. As for the treble itself, it has ample enough sparkle and energy to it to make things a bit exciting. But if I were to compare with the rest of the competition within that similar sort of category, as I mentioned earlier, being a warmer sounding IM, it also means that the upper frequency itself would appear less extended, or should I say roll off. Okay, so definitely if you are treble sensitive, Tanchjim Tanya DSP is the one suitable for you. With DSP based IEM, which is becoming more and more common nowadays, so let's just compare this Tanya DSP against the rest of the competition of DSP based IEM, which I have tested so far. And first, I would like to compare against Moondrop Quarks, another very popular DSP based IEM, which I have reviewed recently. So let me just put it this way. The quick comparison between this and Quark DSP is that I would say definitely this Tanchjim DSP is a bit more on the bassy side. So definitely I would say that Moondrop Quarks is in fact a bit more neutral. It is not exactly neutral, it is a bit bassy as well, still boosted with the lower frequency, but not as much as this Tanya DSP. And in fact, I would say that the overall presentation is pretty much similar, with the biggest exception that I feel that Moondrop Quarks is a bit more artificial sounding, whereas this is a bit more natural, warmer and natural. So definitely the DSP module on that Quark DSP is, in fact, if I were to compare it against a normal Quark, is kind of a bit, like I say, less realistic, because it is very digital sounding, especially on the upper frequency. But no such thing with this Tanya DSP. So definitely, if you prefer a bit more of, let's say, sparkle and energy with the upper frequency, and you are not playing something which is overly aggressive, Moondrop Quark's DSP probably still be okay for you. But if you want a bit more of smoothness, organic touch to the sound, and a bit warmer, Tanya DSP is more suitable. And then the next comparison would be against Tanchjim on first DSP model, which is Tanchjim Zero DSP. Now, it is no secret that I love Tanchjim Zero, the basic model. So the difference between first, right, between this Tanya DSP and Tanchjim Zero DSP is the tuning itself. So definitely I would say that Tanchjim Zero DSP is again more towards being neutral, okay, with pronounced boosting of the mid-bass section, not so much on the sub-bass. And the overall boosting of the lower frequency itself is not as aggressive or as heightened as this Tanya DSP. So put it this way, again, if you are the type of person who love dance and big bass, definitely you would choose Tanya DSP over Tanchjim Zero DSP, the tuning itself. But if you prefer a bit more of, let's say, mid bass focus with good sparkle and energy, and in fact a bit more pronounced treble, Tanchjim Zero DSP is the one to choose for. The next comparison which I have tested so far would be against Moondrop Droplet. And this is a unique IEM because it is perhaps the only DSP IEM which is running on single balance amateur, whereas this is single DD. And because of the construction itself, it is already very different in the way they present sound. I have already mentioned that how organic, warm sounding and bassy this Tanya DSP is. Moondrop Droplet is the exact opposite. It is in fact, for somebody who loves bass, probably would appear lean and dry because it is tuned closer towards diffuse, feel neutral target with minor boosting in the lower frequency. So meaning that if you want a bit more of neutrality with the sound itself, I would say again that, Tanya DSP does not provide neutral sound, but it does offer natural organic sound. Moondrop Droplet is a bit more faithful to the neutral standard of tuning. And in fact, the price is also different. And definitely, I would say that Moondrop Droplet is kind of like almost more than double the price of this Tanya DSP. With more and more phones coming out these days without any kind of 3.5mm audio jack like this Sony Xperia one here, okay? And the majority of those phones, almost all of them, uses USB Type-C. It makes perfect sense to release something like this, DSP-based USB Type-C IEM, permanently attached to it. No headache at all. You just buy it, you use it, you attach it, you listen to it. Okay, on the go, anywhere, anytime. And it is in fact quite usable also on the PC. Attach it with an adapter to USB-A. And in fact, I have been using this, like I mentioned earlier, even for gaming and even for usage with Discord. So the versatility of this Tanchjim Tanya DSP is something which I really appreciate. It is definitely very comfortable. I was able to wear it for a very long period of time. And in fact, despite not the type of person who enjoy bass, sometimes when I listen to electronic music or even heavy metal, especially, I really enjoy the sort of output coming from this IEM. So definitely something which I would highly recommend.